All right, is this freshman cover for 2020 any good? And I was a part of the hate train for a minute when I first looked at it because in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, yo, Double XL's whole MO, their whole point is to put on the poppin' artists, give them a bigger platform so they can have their voice, get more buzz, and they're supposed to be the predictors, like the curators for what we're going to be listening to in the future, right? Their decisions right now impact how we're going to listen to these guys 2-3 years later. Sometimes they've been spot on and other times they haven't been. But I feel like there were so many people this time around that had no clue who half or a good portion of the Double XL freshman list were. And that made me happy because I'm like, yo, if this is putting people on to new acts, isn't that a better point or a bigger focus than just putting on artists who everyone wants to be a part of the platform? Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to see people like Don Toliver on here. I would have loved to see people like Benny the Butcher on here, even though I know he isn't going to be a part of it. People were arguing for Chef G and Stunnafor Vegas, but like I said, looking at the list, I'm not too mad at what's going on here. We got a couple picks that I expected. 2019 was probably one of the years that made the most sense as far as the Double XL picks to me. We had DaBaby, Meg Thee Stallion, Blueface, a bunch of artists like Gunna as well, Roddy Ricch, Rico Nasty, a bunch of artists that had been blowing up and had been receiving exposure and buzz for a while. But the more and more I see that pattern, the more and more I see less of a point in it when you could put people onto artists that a lot of people don't really listen to. One of my picks for Double XL 2020 was actually Baby Keem, and I told y'all about him for the first time June 2019, sometime last year. And I'm happy he made the list. I think he can sound very TDE-ish. I think he can sound like a younger Kendrick sometimes. I think if anything, if you don't usually like listening to Kendrick Lamar, going to Baby Keem for not really a dumbed down version of a similar style, but sometimes similar vocal inflections and even beat selections are right up his alley. And like I said, if you don't really love listening to Kendrick Lamar, Baby Keem is a much more melodic, sometimes slower version, a little bit easier to get into. I think his style is really fluid. He's got really good songs like Orange Soda. Honest is another really great one off of his Die For My Bitch album. Another pick they got on here is Rod Wave. Now, Rod Wave was a little confusing to me at first because it was at least made known to me that Rod Wave had been out for a minute. It would have made more sense, in my opinion, for him to be a part of 2019's Double XL freshman cover, but you know, he's got, I think, one, maybe two, three, like mixtapes or albums out already. It's gonna be hard to see whether or not this placement is gonna benefit him long term. I'm not really a big fan of his music, the whole singing, melodic, low come up story. Like he raps like he sleeps with his gun, but he doesn't like to. I'm not a big fan of Rod Wave, but I think he's got talent, and I think him being placed there makes sense as well. NLE Choppa, another reasonable pick. He's got a couple of songs that go hard. I think his energy that he brings to everything is really appreciated. I like that it's never a dull moment with dude. I don't always like his music, and I haven't listened to his latest project that came out, I think, a week ago, but I plan to. I don't really have a reason to, hate on this. It makes sense. I've heard his name throughout the lands for a while now. Polo G is another really good pick to me. I'm not, again, a big fan of Polo G's latest record, but I think lyrically and just as, ability to tell a story and ability to have a topic, anyone out of everyone on this list, in my opinion, outside of maybe CHIKA, Polo G probably has the potential to perform like the best concept album. Not saying that he has to have a concept album, it's just to say that if anyone's going to have that and it be performed well from start to finish, I think he has the best chance at that. Being socially conscious, but also having something for the streets at the same time. I like some of his music. I don't like it all, but I like some of it, and him being placed here, he's probably the most skilled rapper out of everyone, I think. You got Fivio Foreign, who is basically, I would say, a stand-in for Pop Smoke. I also heard that Pop Smoke was slated to be on this year's list, which would have been cool, but unfortunately he passed away. Now Fivio is in that spot. I think the whole drill thing for Fivio, I don't mind. I do hope that we get a bit of variation, maybe taking him away from that drill sound and putting him in this setting. We'll see how versatile of an artist he actually is, if he relies on that to be preferred, or if he actually has a good skill set on his own outside of his drill production. The next name I was about to mention, I don't really have too much to say about because I'm not really huge fans of them. People like CalBoy, people like Mulatto, who, a lot of them exist in like this trap wave where they don't actually have much of a personality of their own to shine through the production. I believe Lil Keed is a bit of a Young Thug protege. I'm not saying he sounds exactly like him. He does have his own vocal inflections. I just don't like him as often, but we'll see. I think out of everyone here, he's got like the most eccentric vocal range, like the most eccentric vocal capabilities. So he might deliver something really melodic, and I might really enjoy it this time around. You never know. 24K Golden is another one that's got some melodies to his voice, but again, his music doesn't really strike me in any way. I think he's got a couple hit records, but I don't really think he does anything for the list. I could have easily, traded him out and put someone like a Don Toliver in here, but I think he's one of the people's choices, so it makes sense if he's on there as well. Jack Harlow is probably the pick on here that I think is like the most generic, because I think anyone, if they rap in a way like Jack does, I don't think his style is anything really original. A lot of the time when I'm listening to his music, I feel like I'm hearing, the white version of Drake, if you thought that Drake couldn't get white enough. And that's also not to say that I think he's bad. It's just to say that I don't really see a point in listening to his music. For me, everything that he raps about, there's another rapper that raps about the same thing or has a better melody or a better flow that I would prefer listening to. So it just makes his music a bit more obsolete for me. But it makes sense, he had a big year, I guess. Lil TJay exists in that, A Boogie kind of nav lane that is very Speaker Knockers inspired. I'm hoping that one of these dudes is able to take that sound and develop it into something more than just a Speaker Knockers ripoff, in my opinion. But we'll see. I like some of TJ's songs. He had a project that came out a couple months ago, maybe a month or two ago. And I like a few songs, but for the most part, it didn't grab me or do anything crazy. And I don't really expect anything more from him than A Boogie did back in 2017 when he first was announced as a freshman. Last one on here is CHIKA, and she's probably my favorite pick on here, I would say. I know a lot of people don't but I know a lot of people don't know of her, don't listen to her music. I talked about her earlier this year when she dropped her Industry Games album. But I think if you haven't listened to her music, one of the best showcases of her ability is probably the track Designer. So many beat switches on here. She goes into so many different flows. Her vocal inflections are on point. It's mixed great. There's a beautiful sample in the background that's playing throughout. I think music like that is exactly the type of instrumentation, lyrical confidence, and lyrical transparency that I'm looking for. So she definitely killed that earlier this year. I didn't like every song off the album, and it definitely struck a weird chord in me when I saw that there was a clean version of the album as well, because generally that doesn't happen unless you have major plans to make it big somewhere. Before she had even had many records out, like already having a clean version of your first record when no one really knows who you are, usually means to me that you've got some industry connect somewhere. I'm not saying that she does, I'm just saying that's the way it hit me when I first, saw that earlier in March or April. But yeah, I think she's probably one of the most deserving next to Polo G to be on this spot on the XXL 2020 freshman cover. But outside of that, I don't think it's a terrible list. In hindsight, I think everyone on here makes some sense to a degree, even though I don't like all of them. And I do think that if we're going to move forward with XXL, we should look for artists that we don't know more so we can get put on. I'd rather be put on than see an artist that I already know. And, I already listen to the music. I already know what they sound like. I already know how they get down. And I'll 100% agree with Royce da 5'9" that there was no Detroit representation on this list. And there hasn't been for a little bit. I don't really like that because we got artists like Sada Baby, T Grizzly, FMBDZ, but they've been out for a lot longer, that have been making waves, that have been shaking up the city for a long time, that just don't get that recognition. Maybe they haven't been offered it, maybe they have been, but I just think there should be some Detroit representation there because there's really good music coming out of that scene, and I don't feel like it's ever really showcased outside of the people that already listen to it. I expect, someone like a Boldy James even to be announced and represented by Detroit maybe in 2021 for their freshman cover, though he'll likely deny or decline it. I still like to see it. But, out of talented MCs on here, we got Polo G. No, I mean, that's about it, though. I don't think this list is terrible. It could be better, but it also could be much worse. And I think moving forward, we need to look for artists that, we don't know as often. I would prefer that. I like being put on more than I like seeing what I already know.